One community, hundreds of faces, each with their own story. Among them are extraordinary inspirations and fascinating life journeys. These are the Trailblazers. Christopher Redmond is a filmmaker and writer who co-founded the Burundi Film Center, helping youth in Burundi share their stories of rape, AIDS, poverty, loss, and love. He's providing skills, opportunities, and most importantly, hope to a generation of Burundians ravaged by civil war.
It's good to be here at the Bytown. Film is important in your life, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. For sure, yeah.
And
I mean,
theaters are important?
Theaters are very important to me and my wife, as was probably evidenced by the fact that we got married in a theater here in Ottawa.
Okay.
We're both filmmakers, that's how we met, so it seemed appropriate, and yeah, it turned out like a great ceremony.
That's awesome. And the fact is that you have opened up the Burundi Film Center in Burundi. I've got to ask you why? Why Burundi?
Well, the Burundi Film Center, it's a not-for-profit organization. So what we do is we help youth, we teach them how to make films, basically. We teach them the theory of film, we teach them the history of film, and then we teach them how to do screenwriting, production, how to use cameras, everything. We take them through the whole gauntlet, and then we produce short films. And it all started because in 2006, I'm a journalism grad from Carleton, and I was on a program called the Rwanda Initiative, which helps train journalists in Rwanda. And so there was a program set up through my school, Carleton University, and so I was one of the first people to do that. And during that time, I met someone who was working for CNN. He was just freelancing, but he's Rwandan. And we ended up doing a story together. It was with Anderson Cooper, actually. I just tagged along because I said, oh, Anderson Cooper? Yeah, do you need an intern for that? And so
cool.
Yeah, it was cool. So we went to the Congo together for the story he was doing. And on that trip, he was telling me how, you know, Burundi's just south of Rwanda, this tiny country, and they just ended their civil war last year in 2005. His wife is from Burundi, so it was very close to home for him. He said, this project you're doing, training journalists in Rwanda, it's great. He's like, there's a lot of attention that's happening in Rwanda right now, which is great. He said, but there's nothing in Burundi. He's like, it's totally open. We could start whatever we wanted over there, you know, if we wanted. And he actually had this proposal to do a film school, but it was more to how to start an entire film industry, that he was meeting with ministers and stuff. And he's like, tell me what you think. So he sent it to me. I read it over. I said, I love the idea, but when I read your proposal, it's 100% different from what you're telling me. You're telling me you want to help youth. I'm on board with that, but this proposal is how to start an entire film industry. So let me rewrite it. Let me focus on youth. That's really the hook. And so, and if you like what I rewrite, I'll come on board. So I rewrote how I thought we could do it. He read it, he loved it. And so I basically came back to Canada, recruited some filmmakers, one of which would eventually become my wife, and we got married in the theater. But, and we went back to Burundi in June of 2007, and we started this film school basically as a pilot project, just to see if it could work. We had the idea, we didn't want to wait around for funding, and so we just said, let's just do it. We'll bring our own cameras, we'll teach some youth, and we had some, you know, really successful results. How
do you just fund something like that as well? Like, I mean, you're you know, oh, we'll go teach some kids some film, but I would think it's an expensive art form or expensive hobby or.
Yeah, filmmaking is an expensive hobby, period, right?
Exactly,
And so luckily, I mean, because it's been my passion, it's something that, I mean, all my, I drive a, you know, 98 Corolla. All my money goes into film stuff, basically, right? And so the point is, I mean, we've had the equipment, so we brought it all with us, and we paid for our own plane tickets. That's just sort of, we accepted that as sort of a thing. Even when I went to Rwanda for that training session, we paid our own way. I mean, it's basically like going on a vacation where you're working. It was a working vacation, was how I treated it and how I pitched it to people. Because a lot of people want to go to Africa, but they want to do a project when they're there. They don't really feel like, unless you're going on a safari, like they're not sure what they're going to do. And so this was a good excuse. It's like, you want to come to Africa? Great, we'll do something while we're there, and we'll try to get funding down the road. And we've been trying to get it ever since, but it's very, very hard to get funding for an organization that is located in Burundi. And it is expensive. I mean, that's one of the criticisms that we end up getting sometimes,
Yeah, so the thing is, why then pick film as well? Now, you're obviously passionate about film yourself, but a country like Burundi, it's war-torn, it's got a lot of other problems. I mean, so why not go help them with, I don't know, sexual violence or conflict resolution, poverty, there's a whole bunch of other things. Why film?
Well, in one sense, I could argue we're dealing with all of those things because we're doing films. We have the opportunity to deal with them all. The second thing I would say is that I'm not an engineer, I'm not a doctor, my skills are in film. Right. So it's really what I can do. It's what I can bring to the table. So I think that all those things are important. I think we need people to help go get, dig wells for water and all these things, and they're always thankful for that. But if I can use sort of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, for example, there's a lot of the base needs of what humans need. There's food and water and shelter and these very basic needs. And then as you go up, you start getting into more security and other things like that. And most aid in Africa focuses on that bottom tier. We focus on the water and all these things, which is great. But there is a class in Africa, you want to call it the middle class, who aren't just looking for the next meal, aren't just trying to get by. They're educated, and what happens is they get past these certain tiers, and the top tier is creativity in the Maslow hierarchy of needs. And they feel like they can't accomplish that in Africa. So there's this massive brain drain that happens across Africa where you get to a certain level and you want to leave because you don't feel like you can fulfill your dreams in the country. So part of what we're doing in a modest way is trying to cap the brain drain of Africa a little bit, or at least in Burundi, keep those talented people there, telling their stories, making them feel like they can fulfill all their goals in Burundi.
So you're talking about these stories. What are the films about? I mean, what are some of the stories? Maybe give me an example of at least one specific one that's really touched you as well, too.
Sure. Well, in the first year, I found a lot of the films dealt with, actually half the films, I have to say, we had 36 students, and half the scripts dealt with rape in some way. So this was a big issue, it seemed, in 2007. Maybe it's coming out of the Civil War. It's a really interesting way to gauge sort of what's on people's minds. There weren't as many stories dealing with AIDS as I sort of expected, and there was almost no stories dealing with the ethnic conflict. I think we had 1 out of 36. So what we did was, out of these 36 scripts, we produced 5 of them into films, the 5 best. And so we wanted to have a representation of that. So there's about, I always say there's about a film and a half that deals with rape, because one of them is sort of insinuated, but you're not sure what's happening. Other stories are just great universal stories. Some are just really heartwarming. There's one story in particular that I feel is just this perfect metaphor for the African condition, which is, it's about this young guy. He's hoping to go to university. He's saving up, working a job, and he wants to become an architect. Wants to build houses, and he's going to, be this great architect. But his family, his own home, they're going to lose their home. And so his mom tells him, look, we can't live here anymore. We're going to lose our home. I know you've been saving money to go to school, but I need that money so we can go buy a new home, our family. And so he has to choose between whether he's going to build many homes in the future or build one home right now. And I mean, I'll tell you how it ends.
Yeah, what does he choose?
He just buys the home for his family, because really, and it's the opposite of what would happen in North America, in the sense that you have to live for today because tomorrow might not come. That's really a lot of the mentality in Africa, whereas here it's just about save, plan for the future, plan for the future. There, sometimes you can't look that far ahead. And so that was one of the really touching stories that has done really well. It's gotten some great reviews, and just one of them. And a few years ago, we did a few more films, and we actually started getting into comedy, and you could tell the mood had lightened up a little more. We were doing some comedy films.
A bit further away from the Civil War, basically.
Yeah. And so it's really interesting every year, sort of what comes forward and what stories they want to tell. Yeah.
Christopher has taken these stories from the heart of Burundi to film festivals around the world, including Sundance and Toronto. A number of his students worked on the 2011 Academy Award-nominated short film Nawewe. For Christopher, the art of filmmaking is a way to educate, share, and heal, an opportunity for peace to take root.
And how difficult was it for you to be accepted? I mean, you're a white Canadian filmmaker in Burundi.
Yeah, who has trouble speaking French. It's a francophone country, I should say.
Yeah.
And I grew up out west. I grew up in Alberta and Saskatchewan, and so I took French immersion all through school. but I never got to practice it a whole lot. So it was very rusty when I got there. So there was multiple layers of why I was even worried I would not be well accepted. And one of the guys told me, who was, well, the co-founder actually, because I said, you know, maybe you should do more of the teaching because you're African, you know, they'll probably listen to you more. And he just pulled me aside. He said, man, you're coming here to give them education. If they don't want it, they can leave. And he was just very blunt with it. He's like, they want to listen. They want to learn. No one's going to sit here, you know, going, oh, you're telling us how it's done. And that was my fear, was that they would have this kind of, I don't know, hesitation about listening. It hasn't been like that. That has not been the case at all. There are other issues that come up based on the
Like
race. Well, it's the idea that my biggest battle is always that somehow we have money for this center that's coming from afar, and that we're just not telling them about. I mean, it's really not. This is really friends and family have pitched in. That's where we get all of our funding. We do fundraisers once in a while. But they just assume that, and maybe rightfully so, most organizations that set up have government backing and they have money coming from somewhere. We just don't. And so we really rely on them volunteering a lot of times. And it's just, we have to deal with some skepticism sometimes of what's happening with the films. They assume, I mean, any filmmaker knows that playing in festivals, you don't make a penny playing in film festivals, really. But when they see all the success the films are having playing in festivals, they just assume that there's checks coming in as well. So they have to take my word for it that that's not the case. They're not, you know, these films are not making a ton of money. Once in a while, in a blue moon, we got our first broadcasting license actually in Europe and Africa, which did pay, and that does enable us to have another course, for example. But that's the biggest struggle.
So the cynicism, though, I mean, you know, if they're thinking, well, if it's not making you money, why are you doing it? Then I've got to ask you, Christopher, why are you doing this?
Oh, sometimes I ask myself the same question. I don't know if I have the best answer for it.
Is there really a best answer? I mean,
no, I mean, at this point, it's become part of my identity, really. I mean, it's been a way for me to give back. I've gotten a lot from it, just in intangible ways.
Like what?
I just enjoy it. I like, I'm producing films. I mean, really, I get to be a producer here, and I am producing their films, and it's good work. I watch it, and I go, yeah, that was a story worth telling. People see it, they connect with it. So as a filmmaker, you always want to get great stories out there. Even if I'm not directing them, I want to be a part of these things. And for me, it's been a growing experience as well. It's helped me, you know, expand my craft. And so I guess that's probably the best way that it's really helped me. But otherwise, yes, it costs me money. Yes, it takes up a lot of time. But most passion projects do.
You're getting these films out to, what, I think it's like over 50 international film festivals. How seriously were you taken at first? No one's heard of Burundi, probably.
Well, that helps us a lot of times. I mean, to be honest, a lot of festivals, they like saying, you know, we've got films from 37 different countries around the world. So the fact they're from Burundi, yeah, we didn't have any competition in that regard. They still have to hold up to a certain standard. But I think they were a little forgiving sometimes because the sound pops here and there, and it's not always as polished as most films that are produced in Canada. But there's sort of a foreign element there that does help the films. And the stories are really universal. I mean, even if they're really specific sometimes to Burundi about a Burundian law that passed, people watch it, usually the way they're presented, and they're like, I get that, you know, like it connects with people on a more universal level. So it's helped us, I think, more than anything.
And then were they surprised at the quality of the films?
Yeah, almost always, and especially when they understand the context of how they were made. I mean, all of these films that we've made are done so fast. They're done so quickly, really. I mean, I focus on the script because I always tell them, look, writing is the only part that is free. You stay home, you write, take the time to write the right story. Because as soon as you get a camera, you're renting a camera, you're getting people out there, that's when it gets expensive.
So how fast are these films made?
They're shot in one day and they're edited in one day.
That's kind of crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, it's nuts. And that's just the pace we had to do 5 films because you're shooting a different film every day, you're editing a different film every day, and usually I can only go there for a month or so. And so the first 2 weeks is just working on the scripts, getting, you know, training them with different equipment and everything. And then, I mean, we're working fast, but we can get good results. I've gotten good results like that, you know, here in Canada as well. So.
You really seem to enjoy it. Like, it's just incredible. What, you know, what's perhaps affected you the most from doing this project?
That's a good question. I think seeing the students go on afterwards and have success, it gives me a lot of pride. It gives me even more pride when they stay in Burundi. So if they go out and they get training in France or in Egypt or Morocco or Salt Lake City or in Montreal, they all have that temptation to stay where they're going, to emigrate. But when they do come back and they do start giving back, that's where I feel like, okay, we're accomplishing our goal. You know, we're going to close the cycle a little bit, and they're going to start training the next generation. And that's where, you know, I've always gotten a lot of pride. But also, like I said, seeing the films play within Burundi, I get a kick out of it every time, without a doubt. And seeing them here as well and getting the reactions from people is also the most rewarding part. Yeah, it takes a long time to get there, but I think any filmmaker would say once you share it with an audience, that's really the everything. Yeah.
Right. So when did you realize that film was something you wanted to do?
I'm not sure. It's been always probably, I never thought of anything else as sort of an option, you know. I grew up and my dad was a police, and I remember when I was a kid and you had, every year I would fill out a card like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I could tell from like grades 1 to 3, there was check boxes, and I would check police. But even then I knew, I was like, oh, I think my dad will be mad if I don't say I want to be a police, because he's a police officer. He couldn't care less. So, you know, he's totally happy for me, whatever I'm doing. And it was just always something I loved to do. Was never sure how I would make a living at it, but you know, found a way.
That's why you studied journalism.
That's exactly. Yeah, I studied journalism, and it was one of those kind of side roads in. But yeah. So you mentioned this is quite significant. I mean, this whole project, I would think, has been significant for you, because not only did you start the Burundi Film Center, but in the middle of it, you fell in love. Yeah.
And I mean, that's like, tell me about that. What was that all about?
Well, yeah, everyone thinks I had this big devious plan.
Yeah, like, did you take her there?
Bringing this beautiful filmmaker with me over to Burundi. And we were just friends at the time, and there was another filmmaker there with us. There was 3 of us. But somehow just through the whole stress of it all, and yeah, we really connected when we were there. And our students just love the fact that we're married now, because they saw us just as trainers, and we were, you know, we weren't dating or anything like that. And so they all feel like they have a piece of it. In fact, there's been a lot of kind of like romances through the Burundi Film Center. That's kind of one of the B stories that goes on.
Side benefits.
Yeah, students that have gotten to trainers that have like all found their wives since they started the Burundi Film Center. So it all has this kind of magical place for us, and this, you know, these love connections that come together. And yeah, for my wife and I mean, she's the artistic director, so she's really been the one who's been able to give us, I don't know how to say, like, we look a little bigger than we are because of her. She takes just beautiful pictures. She's really been able to really present it. She's done beautiful designs and everything like that. So we were able to really put our best foot forward a lot. So when people look us up online, they really think, wow, you guys really got your stuff together.
Yeah, your website looks really great.
Yeah, I mean, we have our stuff together to an extent, but we're still getting it together. You know, I mean, we're always looking for sort of more stability, more of a regular program to happen there, but the pictures look good, that's for sure.
A spark of an idea has turned into a love affair that has changed Christopher's life and the lives of many others. He runs a film school in Burundi, holds down a full-time job in Ottawa, and manages to make films. He was at the Cannes Film Festival in 2012, representing his short film, Ne pas reculer.
Okay, so personal films. You do make films, and you were in Cannes this year for a film that you wrote.
Yes.
Is that correct? Yes.
Yeah.
So tell me about that.
Yeah, so it's a film that I co-wrote, a short film, kind of under the same constraints of these Burundian films, which I think is the way to make films now, because 48 hours, you know, you don't have time to second guess yourself. You got to go with your instinct a lot. And it was a short film that we wrote and created at a festival in Montreal. And at the end of the year, Telefilm, which is sort of the big funding agency here in Canada for films, they do a screening every year at Cannes, sort of to showcase what they consider the sort of top short films from the year from across the country. And so the film got selected for that. So we had a screening in Cannes, and then Quebec also has their own proper screening. And so we got selected from them as well, because we made the film in Montreal.
So you had 2 screenings.
We had 2 screenings.
Congratulations.
Yes, thank you, in Cannes. So we ended up getting tickets for that. Well, for the whole festival, we had passes. And so we went, and it's an invitation only, very exclusive, very ridiculously I don't know, crazy
over the top.
Yeah, festival. It's really just you're surrounded by yachts. You're surrounded by just the richest people, and all you can do is just kind of look around, being like, well, you know, who can I meet here that's going to help me? And
that's what I was thinking. Did you get any sponsors for the Burundi Film Center?
No, you know, people aren't just walking around with their checkbooks out unless you've got Brad Pitt beside you, I think. So it was really tough to navigate, but it was a great learning experience. I made a lot of good contacts that will hopefully pay off down the road. But yeah.
So what do you hope for next for the center?
The current goal, I'm leaving next week to go to Burundi, and we're doing our first level 2 course. So when we first started the Burundi Film Center, I knew that I was giving a crash course, and I was like, you're not gonna get everything you need to know in this one course. So we called it level 1, so everyone knew. And our goal was always to do 3 levels. We thought kind of an advanced class and a master's class. And we just have not been able to put together a advanced class yet at level 2. We also needed, you have to go through a lot of students before you have enough that are interested in taking the level 2 and are at that level. And so we're at that point now where we can hold a level 2. So it's going to be a script writing course. We're teaching how to write a feature film script. And we'll have just over a dozen students, hopefully. And hopefully in the sense that, hopefully we won't have more than that, because there's always more than that are interested in doing it, just to make it manageable. And ideally from that, we'll have enough good scripts that I'll start shopping them, and hopefully we'll produce a feature film, you know, sometime around 2014. Yeah. It's sort of the current medium-term goal.
Okay, what's a long-term goal? What's the hope? What was that hope of opening up a Burundi Film Center in Burundi?
Yeah, well, my personal goal is literally to be able to step away from it at one point, and it's still going on its own. You know, if I can just be a face on the wall, great. Okay. It means that we've started something that has legs and it's moving.
So and how about for you though then? Then what would you do?
Well, then I would love to transition into filmmaking myself. I mean, I share the same dreams as these students, which is I think where some of the energy comes from when we're all together and making films. So I want to make more of my own films, you know, and eventually, you know, get into features more, doing a lot of short films right now. And so my goals are sort of tied to the Burundi Film Center, as you can tell from how we're like going to produce a film with the Burundi Film Center, and that's also sort of my personal goal. Yeah. So we're working together, I think, and everyone's got the same ambitions. So hopefully we'll get there together.
Yeah. Oh, that's pretty great.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I want to go to Burundi and make films now.
Well, there's always a spot for you if you can come. We always tell people, because
I'm not from Burundi though.
It doesn't matter. I'm not from Burundi.
Although you're teaching.
Yeah,
but they taking the course.
Sure, they keep telling me that they're going to give me honorary citizenship at some point.
Oh, is that right?
Well, the people that I work with all the time, they're like, we're going to make you a Burundian citizen. And they know it's such a small country that they literally know the president, and they're like, oh yeah, we're going to talk to Pierre.
Well, do you have support of the government to do this, and are they helping with funding this because of all of these great changes you're bringing on?
The best I can say is they don't interfere.
Okay.
Okay, so I know that sounds a little coy, but really, for all the reasons I explained before about how disproportionate the expenses are of a film school, they're not going to put any money into a film center. It's just too far removed unless there's a financial return. And so they enable us, they give us shooting permits on the street. We have a relationship there. The Minister of Culture signs our certificates, so he kind of officializes the education we give them. They're our partner in that sense, but financially, no, we don't, and don't ever really expect to get funding from them unless there's some massive changes that happen in Burundi.
And how can people help here?
Well, we do fundraising every once in a while. We have sort of an Indiegogo page right now where we're trying to raise some sponsorship. People can buy the films as well if they're interested, going on the website. They can just attend screenings as well whenever we hold them. We hold them in Ottawa. Usually every time I come back, we'll hold a screening. We hold them in Montreal and Toronto. And especially if you're a filmmaker, and ideally if you speak French as well, then we're always looking for people. So the best way is just to contact me.